Former President Donald Trump is heading to Capitol Hill today to meet with Republican lawmakers. This will be his first time there since the January 6th attack in 2021. Now, this visit comes to shore up his support following his guilty verdict on 34 counts of falsification of business records.
We're excited to welcome Trump back, said Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Joining us now to discuss is national political reporter at The Hill, Cate Martel. Thank you so much for joining us, Cate.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So what is the mission here from the Trump perspective and from the Republican perspective? What does he hope to gain by this meeting?
Well, I think what Republicans and former President Trump have in common with this meeting is they want unity. President Trump is coming to Capitol Hill knowing that Republicans are fairly splintered ideologically right now. And he's hoping ahead of the Republican National Nominating Convention to try to bring some unity to the Republican Party as well to focus on their policy goals. I think that's one of the big themes that we're expecting from this meeting today is to discuss what would the first 100 days look like if Republicans can win the House or keep the House and win the Senate. So I think there's just a big message of unity and also kind of how do you go from here? What are we looking at from a policy perspective? And let's get all on the same page before November so that when they head out on the campaign trail over the summer, that Republicans have more of a kumbaya message than they've had over the past year or so.
Is it unity or is it control Trump is looking for? Because we have had several Republicans in chairmanship positions leave announce their retirements. Mike Gallagher, chairman of the China Committee, key state of Wisconsin, Kay Granger, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Ken Buck, McMorris Rodgers. There are 15 Republicans leaving at a time that they have control. So is Trump going to be more of a problem for the GOP majority?
It's an excellent point you make. And when you rattle off those names, yes, that certainly is a factor here. And I think when Trump is looking at the dynamics on Capitol Hill and sees that there is some of this disunity that is going on among Republicans, I think this is really, I think you can compare both control and unity is, the same thing as far as the Trump campaign is concerned, that they really want to be on the same page. All of those chairs that you mentioned that are stepping down, also Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell is also retiring pretty soon. So this is also, while this will be the first meeting of McConnell and Trump since 2020, and they've had some beef ever since, it also, I think, is going to show that they want to all be on the same page. While that some of these Republicans, yes, do have different perspectives and have had some, tense moments over the past few years, they realize that if Trump does well at the top of the ticket, they're hoping that will trickle down and help Republicans in the House and Senate. So I think as far as whether it's control or unity, I don't think it matters as far as both from Trump's perspective and Republicans, because they all have the same goal in November.
Yeah, it looks like it's control and unity. I mean, if we consider the trajectory of the Republican Party and the way Republican members of Congress feel about Trump, there was obviously condemnation of him in the wake of January 6th, but members who were more skeptical of or hostile to Trump have departed. Liz Cheney type people, others retiring who are more in the no thanks to Trump camp. Mitch McConnell himself, while having more of a combative relationship with Trump, as you described, exiting the leadership position. It looks to me like this is going to be a caucus, House and Senate, that is more behind Trump than ever before. Is that not the case?
I certainly think that's the case, particularly after a jury convicted Trump on 34 felony counts in the hush money trial. I think that actually brought more unity to Republicans. Even several Republicans who you would call never Trumpers and were not exactly Trump allies came out and wanted to defend President Trump over this conviction. So I actually think that they are at a place right now where they can be unified in a way that they hadn't. The fact that McConnell and Trump are going to be meeting again today, I think also just shows that they're willing to put some of their differences aside. Their beef had gotten to a point where it was really tense. Even there were remarks that Trump made that were racist against McConnell's wife. And, it got pretty deep. It was not just politics, that it got somewhat personal. So the fact that they're willing to put this aside, I think they're realizing, just how important the stakes are. And I think while, when you look at the Senate map, it much more favors Republicans than it does Democrats, that, it does also is good for incumbents that, it's not a given that the Senate is going to necessarily go into Republican control. And I think that they're seeing that they really need to put aside some of these differences if they want to have a chance in November.
So if the anti-Trump Republicans are leaving Congress, you now have Ken Buck heading out. That is a one-seat majority for Speaker Mike Johnson. There is nothing this Congress can do without the support of Democrats. Yet, when Democrats and Republicans came together for an immigration compromise bill, Trump came in and deep-sixed it. How is this Congress supposed to govern if it's rallying behind Trump?
It's an excellent point. And, what I would say to that is it's going to be really, really hard for Republicans to govern in the House, but we are in a campaign year. They passed what they needed to pass. They kept the government funded. They passed the supplemental security bill to provide aid to the Middle East as well as Ukraine and Taiwan. They got what they needed to do legislatively, and I don't think there are many legislative goals in the House that can still be accomplished at this point. That I would argue that the House is already thinking about the campaign. They're already focused on that. And, when you look at campaign years, not much generally happens legislatively. That's why we saw, as you mentioned, former President Trump behind the scenes helped tank the bipartisan border bill. He argued that it was not strong enough, but also, let's face it, that helps Republicans on the campaign trail to say that they weren't able to pass anything on the border. That's a politically popular talking point for Republicans and something for them to run on the campaign trail. So I think you can make the argument that it very much benefits Republicans to not be able to get that done and to push that to 2025 and have all their hopes on the campaign trail and probably not do much legislatively because of such a slim majority, as you mentioned.
Democrats have been so keen to continue to bring up the events of January 6th. How are they reacting to Trump's visit? Is this another? Are they, condemning his mere presence in the building?
Oh, absolutely. As well as the Biden campaign actually unveiled an ad to pin January 6th on former President Trump. So while President Biden himself is in Italy, his campaign is back here trying to bring home that theme. And, we expect to hear a lot of statements from Democrats, both in the House and the Senate, to condemn this meeting. And not to mention, not every Republican is going to be attending this. So while, yes, we're going to be hearing from Democrats, and I assume they're going to have a lot of really critical, angry statements after this meeting, pinning the January 6th attacks on former President Trump. We're also seeing at least 3, maybe 5 Republican senators who are bowing out of today's meeting. That's at least Senators Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins all say they have scheduling conflicts and can't be a part of today's meeting. But it's also worth pointing out that all 3 voted to convict President Trump in 2021 in his second impeachment trial. So, I think we're going to see particularly Democrats are going to pass off this meeting today as just, eye rolls and blaming statements. But also at the same time, I think we're also expecting to see some Republicans try to bow out and try to stay out in this as much as possible because they don't think this is necessarily a politically smart move for them to be attached to former President Trump.
Cate Martel, thank you so much for joining us to discuss. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.